Well, here we are once more, the University of British Columbia, where I actually grew up. I moved here when I was 12, over 50 years ago. I got 3 of my university degrees here, and if I had been a good boy and not going into certain areas, I would have been lauded and applauded by now, and not a pariah in my own culture. But the academic environment out here is so strange, you know, the way they can shut somebody out totally, legally, and everyone just turns a blind eye, while at the same time thinking they're nice, liberal, progressive Canadians. It's very strange. I'll give you an example. After I uncovered that evidence in Koerner Library of the 50% death rate in residential schools, and I tried to share that with people in my department, and they all turned away with a frown on their face, I found even more stuff which indicated there are actual quotes from Dr. Peter Bryce, the government medical inspector in Western Indian residential schools, who said, quote, "I believe the conditions are being deliberately created to spread infectious disease." That was in 1907, 50% death rate for another 40 years. Evidence? No. People just didn't want to hear it. But what was interesting, the guy in the department who made sure I got scuttled, my degree got scuttled, his name was Murray Elliott. He was a United Church official. He was actually, at the very moment I was in the department, he was sitting on the church committee that was deciding whether I should retain my status as a minister or not. He helped arrange the defrocking, the kangaroo court that threw me out. And he was also deciding whether I should get academic funding for my thesis on Indian residential schools and the complicity of the United Church. Conflict of interest? Not according to the University of British Columbia, who, after he had forced me out and made sure I didn't get any funding, despite my first grade average, first time in the department that had ever happened, they said, no, he wasn't in a conflict of interest, even though he's with the church that I was criticizing. No. So anyway, it turned out all right, not from a professional point of view for me, but in terms of getting the information out, because instead of sitting in a dusty shelf somewhere, my PhD thesis became the basis of hidden from history, the Canadian Holocaust, and then a lot of my other work and research. So it got out there. It was the hidden hand work. But the way he did it was so efficient, you know. Just slam dunk. He used to go around the department telling grad students that I had a mental problem, I had problems with my wife. This is a professor talking about a grad student. No one objected. No one thought that was a problem. It shows you how effectively it works. And even 7 years later, I was still shut out at UBC. I was invited by Richard Fredericks, a sociology professor here, to come and speak on my research. I was arranged to give 5 lectures. This is February 2003. And after one lecture, Richard kind of sheepishly explained that I couldn't come back. And he didn't explain till about 2 months later what had happened. He had been spoken to by David Pocatello, the head of the sociology department, who actually knew me. I took some anthro courses from him when I was younger. We were friends at one point. Anyway, David Pocatello says to Richard, Kevin is not to be invited back. His book on residential schools is to be removed from your curriculum on crimes against humanity, and you're on suspension. He didn't give a reason why. Eventually, Richard was forced out of the department, had to go teach in Malaspina College in Nanaimo. So he got blacklisted for the crime of having me in. But it shows you how effectively it works. You know, I shared that anecdote about how effectively it is, so easy it is to shut out somebody in the academic world in Canada. And I circulated it to the Canadian Association of University Teachers and other academics. They said, we can't believe that would happen in Canada, even though I had all the proof and evidence. So it shows you why the censorship carries on. You know, the academic world, like the media, is just completely controlled. Certain issues, you don't exist. If you advocate certain issues, you don't exist. The issue doesn't exist. Nevertheless, the truth persists, and I'm still out here digging into all this stuff. Glad to be here, still alive after 50 years on the campus. Even though the bullshit continues, so does the opposition, so does the truth.